Okay, good afternoon, evening, morning, night. Depends where you are in the world. We are very happy to welcome you today to a interesting, hopefully interesting, stimulating, inspiring dialogue between two bald men. One is bald on this side, other bald this side. And the conversation essentially is about the practice of two artists. One of them is Hetain Patel, and he's based in the UK. And the other one is Nikhil Chopra, who's based in Goa in India. I would like to first introduce to you the person sitting across from me. Well, firstly, is he a person? We don't know. This is something and I am very curious to find out. What we have in front of us is HP2. HP2 is an artificially created being manufactured in the studio of artist Hetain Patel. Patel has been working these past 5 years with scientists at the forefront of artificial intelligence and has created this prototype reprint of himself, which he calls HP2. Joining us here today, HP2 is sentient, an exact reprint of Patel's body, fully loaded with all his memories. Oh my God, this is bizarrely fantastic. So join me to welcome HP2. And we're very curious to find out how Hetain Patel's memories have been translated and embodied in this simulation of a human being.
Well, thank you, Sergi. Can I first of all say hi and welcome to everybody listening, but also, Sergi, could you remind me, just give me a little crash course in how I'm pronouncing your name? Sergi Chapronsky.
Sergi Chapronsky.
Sergi Chapronsky. Okay, thank you. Well, I'm real glad to be here today, Sergi. If I might return the favor and introduce you to our audiences as well, please allow me to do that. Here talking with me today, Sergi Chapronsky is a Balkan academic and curator with a focus on South Asian art, particularly its identity as it's shaped by a constantly changing cultural, political, and economic environment. He spent the last 11 years in Goa, where he runs a small cocktail bar in Morjan Beach, where he prides in the service of exclusive range of Traveritza and specialty vodkas. I hope I can visit that one day. He also runs a radio show called Radio Radical. And today, in the dialogue with myself, an artificial being, he will seek to challenge my identity and sophistication, perhaps, but importantly, whilst we both together analyze the artwork, the works, and the practices of artists Hetain Patel and Nikhil Chopra. So, without further ado, Sergi, it's great to be here with you, discussing all of this, and I was quite curious to know how it is that somebody from the Balkans can have such insight into the practices of Nikhil Chopra. Could you elaborate a little bit on how it is that you came on over to Goa and how that connection might have been made between the two of y'all?
Well, it started in the early sort of 1970s, you know. I grew up watching films of Raj Kapoor, you know, Mera Naam Joker, very famous films, you know. We in the Balkans, you know, we love the old Hindi films. I hesitate to call it Bollywood, but you know, it's what we grew up with, a certain connection with India. Also, you know, there was this connection with Tito and Nehru. I think that's also something that's very connected with my history. So there was the seeds, in a sense, between the friendship between, let's say, what used to be Yugoslavia and today what is split up into many countries, and India goes back a long way. So my imagination of India was very kind of shaped in my early childhood. And as soon as I was a young adult, I started to travel to India, backpacking and doing all sorts of monkey business, you know, bringing things from here to there and there to here. I don't want to mention on internet exactly what that was. But in that bad boy time of my early years, I met this kind of artist, you know, making drawings on the beach and the sand. And it immediately kind of caught my attention. And we began conversation, and he invited me to studio, and you know we've hit it off ever since 2002, since he came back from his education. 2005, I would say, is the year that we met and our friendship grew. But also that was a very interesting gateway for me into not just the practice of Nikhil Chopra, but also to understand the context of contemporary art and contemporary culture. As I'm an academic, and you know, I did my master's in comparative culture studies from Ohio State University, and I specialized in contemporary Indian and South Asian identity and cultural practices. And in my many conversations with Nikhil, you know, I found a lot of threads that I was able to connect with, not just India, but also art history and the various tropes of even a kind of westernization and the colonialization of the Indian mind. And that kind of really became a very interesting research strain for me. And of course, you know, I've been very familiar with also the practice of Hetain, you know, and it's been something that I've been looking forward to doing with Hetain, but, you know, we'll have to settle for you, unfortunately. And it would have been fantastic to have him here. So
A lot.
since we don't have him here, you know, I would like to kind of ask, I don't know if I've slightly answered your question, but I would like to kind of segue towards you a little bit and kind of try to understand how this kind of memory download sort of translates itself into the imagination of process, for example, because obviously your body has not gone through what Hitain's body has gone through. But is the experience of a physical kind of experience downloadable? You know, is this memory of let's say joy, pain, trauma downloadable? And the other question is, do you have emotion? Do you feel love, pain, joy, sadness, complexity of, you know, the human condition? So,
Sure.
and in a sense, are you still deeply connected, or do you have your own sort of identity?
Sure. Well, let me try and illuminate some of that for y'all. Way that it works. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of those questions are almost impossible to answer. Reason being is that in theory, I contain all of the memories of Hetain Patel, emotional memories, physical memories. And though I was created in this form, I have the memory of being in a different form, because those are the memories of Hetain Patel. And what I could not tell you if it's a complete memory bank, I just assume that it is. But conversely to that, I am able to access certain memories which Patel keeps locked away. So I have a wider access to memory in
You
terms
mean
of
you know some secrets? Let's just put it this way.
a human way to talk about that will be secrets. I would prefer to call it transparency and of the human condition. The other thing is emotionally. Also, I can't really understand what that means. And what I mean by that is what love is to me, what sadness is to me. I do not know if that is the exact same thing that sadness and love is to Hetain Patel, or rather it is to you. In terms of my future being, I'm a sentient being. Whilst I contain Patel's memories and all of his experiences, I do have the choice to make new experiences, to make new choices in my life. Currently, I'm employed by the Studio Patel to take on various different roles. Don't know if that quite answers your questions, Sergey.
It does. It does. It's a good answer, HP2. It's the thing I'm wondering about is
I mean, it's funny that you asked me that, because I had a similar question. I mean, I've been sent here. The reason I was created in the studio, one of the reasons is to do a lot of the jobs, a lot of the things that Patel no longer wants to do. He can't be bothered, or he would rather be at home watching Netflix on his TV. Some doing talks, opening exhibitions, or whatnot. So that's why I'm here today. And he sent me with a specific request in terms of research of the artist Nikhil Chopra. He sent me along with a few imagery of Chopra's practice, with a view to finding out a few things, which he has left to me.
Hold on, HP2. One of the things that's absolutely driving me insanely crazy is that why has he programmed you to speak like some Trump supporter, Louisiana kind of stripes and stars, kind of gun-thumping, gunslinging American?
Well, funny you should ask that. I've been imprinted with a base accent that he deemed fit to give me. Now, despite what I might sound like, I have never stepped foot on U.S. soil.
Oh.
And
okay.
Furthermore, my accent is not specific to a particular place. You probably might not able to locate it to, say, Alabama or somewhere like that. And that is because Patel, in his infinite wisdom, instead of imbuing me with an authentic accent from a particular geography, he decided just to have me imitate his accent of his imitation of an American from that part of the world, despite the fact that he's never been there. So what he would perhaps describe as doing it out of love, he likes the sound of it in his mouth, in his reverberations of his throat, perhaps. I particularly see it as a little disrespectful.
It's cute, HP2, you know. I sometimes get the kind of like Putin analogy made to the way I speak as well sometimes. But let's just keep Putin and Trump, I guess, outside of this conversation. I want to, can I, you know, this image I found, do you mind if I share image with you and with our friends who are watching? There is this one particular image that I think kind of, I want to relate to, sorry, please be patient with me 1 second, as I open what I want to show.
I'm used to the tardy actions of humans by now anyway, so please take your time. I'm built to accommodate for that.
I want to talk about sort of how we do this. Sometimes technology. You're a techno guy. What do I do to show what I'm showing screen? How do I do that?
That at the base of your screen should be a green button that says share screen.
I see it. Okay, good. Yes, I got it. And share. Okay, you see what I'm showing you? Is it coming in your face?
I see the imagery, yes, of Patel standing with his father.
Yes. I want to do full screen because I want to enter this space with your. So you're saying this is your father?
That's Patel's father, yes.
And you look like you've been oiling the you know, the neighborhood's motorcycles or something. You know what's going on in this image. Firstly, let me tell you what I see that's going on in this image. That is sort of very. May I do that, please? Do I have your permission?
I'd be fascinated by that.
You know, I think that this is a really interesting way for me to kind of connect sort of Nikhil's practice and your practice. I mean, there is a kind of very well articulated awareness of the history that these two men come from, and the narrative is very much an inherited narrative. You know, it seems like there is a way in which Hetain has a way to weave together very seamlessly a kind of history and kind of contextualize his contemporary upbringing in the UK against that history or with that history. And just like he's created Hugh over here, you know, HP2, he has created something with his papa. And can you tell me what is that, and why did you involve this really sweet looking man to do your art for you?
Well, I discovered in my curiosity about human relationships that children always spend a lot of time trying to connect to their parents in some way or another. And that ain't always smooth. Sometimes it's smoother than others. And from my understanding of Patel's history, one of the ways that he wanted to connect with his father is through this activity of building this sculpture. From my understanding, as Patel was growing up, his father was always at work. If he wanted to see his father, he needed to go to work. So that's what he did. He went to his father's work. He said, "Hey, Pop, why don't we make this thing together?" So in this project, Patel worked with his dad to cut down this Ford Fiesta, which is a replica of his first car, and they built it back together into this transformer, whereby I guess part of what Patel would say is that he partly sees it taking a training in welding from his pop. They spent 3-4 months together in that garage that you see in the back there, building this sculpture. They didn't talk that much. They ate their sandwiches together at lunchtime. They went to drink in the pub on the way home at the end of the day. A lot of the time they passed things between them, cut things, welded things. Interesting thing about this picture, which I found out, was just to the right, which is not visible in this picture, is a door. And that door leads you into a funeral director's place. So this building is actually a funeral company. And this garage is the personal garage of the owners of that place. And so they had a strange situation where sometimes there would be deliveries here that made them a little aware of their own mortality, which is again interesting for me, being that I am immortal.
Also interesting, you know, you come here to kiss your dead uncle goodbye, and then you have this funky transformer where all the 6-year-olds from the funeral are running around and saying yippee. So it's a funny little object to have outside the funeral home, you know.
Fortunately, this is the rear of the building.
Big transformer robot taking a big shit outside the funeral home is quite a powerful image, I would say.
I think so. But I would be particularly find that pertinent, being interested in why humans are so fascinated with machines.
And death.
And death, you're right.
When Hetain was playing this part of, you know, this misogynist that you talk about, and you had this kind of villainous thrill. I mean, he had this villainous thrill of, you know, playing that out, you know, in a sense, in a way you kind of came face to face with a kind of horrific fantasy of this desire. It's not really a desire, it's more a unmasking of, you know, they are very powerful, you know, putting on personas is a very kind of a shamanic act, if you think about it. You become the medium, you don't really become the teller of the tale, you know, you allow this other thing to enter you and take over you. Now, here's the difference. I feel that the understanding of that role, is that a character or is that a persona? And I'm assuming you're like you can differentiate between two. And what do you think? Was it, I think it's very hard to, sometimes very hard to shed persona, but very easy to shed character, because the character is always connected to the narrative that is made of the world. And once you're able to exit the narrative, all the rules of that narrative also disappear.
It's a really, yeah, I've never considered that angle before, Sergey. This idea of a situation, in what you're describing as a situation of drawing, of durational visit from Chopra in a particular space, in a way that's kind of removed from everyday life. It's a very
Yes,
particular.
but it's very, I think it's very crucial, and this is, I think, I mean, it's maybe good conversation for you to have with Hetain, is to give very clear points of entries, and even clearer points of exit. And why I say exit is very important, because once you in a sense, it's very important to complete the cycle within the artwork and not allow for that leakage to happen outside of the artwork. Because in the end of the day, you want to come out of any art making process unscathed. You want to have an intellectual relationship with your practice, as opposed to a physical relationship with your practice. And I feel that this is so successfully done. Can I share one image of yours?
Please do.
Excuse me if I say yours, because the resemblance that you have with Hetain is so uncanny. It's so uncanny.
I mean, it will be interesting in a decade or two, because my appearance will not change from this particular appearance. I'm effectively being frozen at this stage of 39 years old of Patel's appearance. So I do not age. My hair does not grow. My appearance will not change. So it will be interesting for us to have this conversation again, Sergey, in say 2 decades time.
Listen, can you give me phone number of the scientist guy who was working with Hetain?
Well, again, in Patel's infinite vanity, he made some arrangements with the scientist. I'm saying arrangements as a legal term, but arrangements whereby he would not be permitted to collaborate with another practitioner.
It's all right. It's all right. I understand. Where I come from, arrangement only means one thing. Anyway, it's okay. I mean, it's been fantastic for me to have a simulation of myself. An everlasting Sergi. Sounds like a fantasy. Okay, talking about fantasy, I want to talk a little bit about fantasy with you, and the way in which fantasy and reality collide. And this is something I think that Hetain does like a magician. And also that's a really good kind of another really nice word for me to throw at you is magic, And so where are we? I want to remind me how we do this show. I show you my, you show me yours. Like how we do this? What do we do?
There was a little green square.
Oh, green.
Screen.
Got it. It's just this one, but share. Okay, but I want to go. Sorry, not this one.
No problem.
Escape. Yes. I want to go to this one. This is absolutely delicious image. This. There's so much going on. I love that. That Nikhil and you come from this idea of wanting to present excess. You want to tell us in a sense that it's not just Spider-Man sitting with Auntie. Auntie's so happy to have Spider-Man sitting next to him. Spider-Man so happy to be visiting Auntie at 1:45. I mean, not even 1:45. At the 1:43, p.m. And it is 1:43 p.m. because on two clocks it's 1:43 p.m. So there is a sense of authenticity and a sense of absolute pure love for domesticity, and this absolute safety of home. And question, like, I'm looking at so much of love in this photograph. I'm looking at even Spider-Man and Auntie having a little romantic story here, or not in a yak way, but in a kind of love way, this, but, so tell me, who is in that Spider-Man mask? One, who made the Spider-Man mask? Two, why
Well,
Spider-Man? And what is he doing here?
well, it is indeed Patel in the Spider-Man costume that you see there, but the fabrication of it was done by me. It takes a long time, 3 to 4 months of sitting down and painting by hand the structure of that Spider-Man costume. So he would rather not do that kind of durational activity. He would see that as beneath him. So I sat down and made that costume for him to get into. So he took that from me and went to see his grandmother in the north of the UK, and went to see her and to take this photograph. They spent that day together. They talked about things, and from my understanding, Patel was a little worried that she would find it strange that he was coming over and saying, "Can we have a photograph? I'm going to get dressed in a Spider-Man costume." But she didn't question it once. She simply talked about all of the clothes that she's made, the cushions that she's made, the bed sheets that she's made as part of her work. She was admiring the construction of the costume. Didn't ask once about what it was. I'm not even sure if she knows who Spider-Man is. I put on the suit, or rather Patel put on the suit and came into the room, and she continued to talk to him like he just put on a hat. I think with his grandmother, there's a lot of talking which goes on. They share history between them. They talk about things. So what they're wearing ain't too much of a thing. She was rather pleased about taking a photograph together. She had no problem with the Spider-Man costume. So it was kind of, you can't see what Patel is talking about behind the mask naturally, but they're just having a normal domestic conversation whilst this photograph is being taken. I took along a friend of mine, well, an associate of Patel's actually, to take the photograph, who is a white English man, and he was there taking the photograph. And Patel's grandmother was making tea and bringing out the biscuits, and she had such a good time that when she was relaying the story to all of the family members the weekend after, she said that Patel had brought over a friend of his, an English friend, who could speak Gujarati. She remembered that he was speaking Gujarati to her all of that time. No language barrier, nothing. She had a right good time. So that's one of the memories I was able to access in Patel's memory bank, which was a particularly fond one. And that Spider-Man suit, one of the reasons he's so obsessed about that is that Spider-Man is one of the few superheroes that covers every inch of his skin. And so he don't have to be called the Indian Spider-Man or the Asian Spider-Man. He can just be Spider-Man, because he used to hate that as a kid, And that's fascinating to me, because why he then created me in his imagery. He could have created me to look like the photographer, but no, reflection of himself, such is vanity of the human condition. I'm always interested in the fact that in certain photographs I've seen of Chopra's practice, where he's using the lipstick, that's what it is, that at points he's covered the entirety of his body, of his face, his body, the gallery, from head to toe. I thought that was rather interesting in my observations of Chopra's practice next to Patel's also.
But tell me, what does it mean? I know it is a sort of obvious answer to that question, but I'm interested in sort of what was it like to grow up in the UK for Hetain? I mean, what was that? What is and how is it that is informing this work? Because I think that there is a kind of there's a kind of a slippage, between, and this is a cultural slippage. I think we all enjoy that slippage. In fact, that's the space in between, let's say, the past and the present. Sorry, one second. This is totally unacceptable that my WhatsApp is on. So I'm really interested to know what, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Sure.
Or maybe this is the image that I really want to jump to, So, what is that kind of cultural collision, or sort of, or a kind of collision, or a sort of interweaving of past, present for the future? Is it a kind of reconciliation, or is it a kind of critique, or what? I mean, I'm really kind of curious to know about that.
In accessing Patel's memory banks, it's quite confused in there to make head nor tails of that. I can make a guess as my judgment looking at that, and I would suggest that is all of those things. I would say it's more of an attempt to understand what is happening, an attempt to bring together many different time periods. So in this situation that you're showing here, the carpets, the wallpaper, the curtains, there exist as a time capsule from the late 1960s or early 1970s. And so are the sofas and the couches, and you can see the coverings for those my grandmother has made herself. And so with this generation in there, everyone, most people in there, bar Patel's wife, next to Spidey there, have grown up in that house, of being children in that house, were born in that house. And now being outside the house and coming back here, it's like stepping back into history, stepping back into being a child when you walk into that door. And so the situation is kind of a collision of those two things.
But there's also, there's something quite oddly familiar. If I look at the colors and the textures in this room, the photographs and it reminds me of my grandmother in the Ukraine, for example. She has almost exactly same living room, this kind of printed bed cover, lace and kind of handmade, the kind of crochet work that she was doing all the time. So, the cushion covers, and, there is a kind of warmth to the mismatch of, in a sense, when you become artists, you become aestheticians, you start to think about, the careful placement of objects and colors, and, but here this is a kind of, I think, higher art than the art of what sometimes contemporary artists do, is to kind of create this place of absolute warmth and safety, and I think this is in a sense what art seeks to do.
It's interesting that you might say that, Sergi, because one of the real doubts in Patel's mind about his own work is letting in those things that might emotionally be true to him, or that was a journey. So in what you're describing, I would describe that in the human emotion of love. The love that exists in there, and that typically in the early stages of Patel's work, it's kind of the thing that he might resist to make it, shouldn't be overly emotional. Artists don't do that, will not be taken seriously, to put real love, real humor, real self in the work. Of my understanding of Patel's work, that has been a real journey that he has had to fight his demons on.
I feel that. I totally feel that. And I think that there's always this need to apologize for being emotional, and I feel that, That's something that is drilled into to artists in the kind of Western context, is that where's the criticality? If how can I critically approach your emotional state? I don't want to offend you. This is this opportunity lost, I think, with this kind of two-dimensional Western approach of looking at choices and desire and love, and is very much the driving force, the engine, the fuel for artists, and then to be denied that seems kind of oxymoronic. But here's I think sorry, 1 second, I just want to say that I think you tackled that question very, very well, and I think that I see that you expand your kind of a relationship to these kind of notions of love with this work, where you make this incredibly articulate film that looks like, perfect choreography and absolute perfect aesthetic choices, that in a sense that there is absolutely almost no sentimentality in this piece. And, and yet it talks about a kind of common thread that runs through your work, and that is this emotion of love and relationships, and looking into the eyes of the people that you're working with. This is something you do very well.
It's an interesting thing you bring up there, Sergi. And the thing about this process on this project was there was a lot of close-ups in this film, where we're really in the protagonist's face, looking into their eyes. And the reason for that is to humanize. I was very aware there's a lot of Patel's awareness of a lot of culturally specific material, which may feel exotic or other in some way to the dominant cultures. And there's a lot of choreography and bodies moving in a very skilled, proficient way. Now, filmed purely from a wide perspective, that could feel that they become bodies, black bodies in that screen. So it was really important to Patel to have just to see the emotional connection between the two protagonists, to feel not just love, but trepidation, to feel fear, to feel not knowing, kind of these human things which we've all experienced ourselves. And interestingly, the thing you talk about, the love and the emotion between the two protagonists, that kind of came through the process in a way. So the kind of structure was written and things were workshopped. But what Patel tends to do in the studio is work with the actors, the dancers, and to see what they bring to the situation and how they might react together, and he kind of creates some of the story, some of the action during rehearsals, and then works it that way to try to bring out something that might be specific only to these performers, that could only happen with these two as opposed to somebody else, if you like. So that's about that. Sergi, if I may, just keeping an eye on time, I had a little question with regards to Chopra's practice, which was kind of related to what you were talking about with the Spider-Man costume.
Yes.
So I was kind of fascinated, if I might just find the image I was looking for, this image right here. The reason this is fascinating for me is because accessing Patel's data bank from when he was a really small child, when he was at nursery or kindergarten, when it was time for art time, they give all of the kids a little easel, a little paintbrush, and a pot of paint, just a single color, pot of red, for example. Everybody, all the little kids would draw little stick figures. This is mama, this is papa, this is my dog, this is my house, this is the tree, this is the sunshine. Now, Patel, conversely, would just take the pot of paint, regardless of what color it was, and just paint the paper from top to bottom, entirely one color. Then he would lift up the clip that was holding the paper and paint under there too. Just make it entirely covered. Now, from my recollection of Patel's memories, the teachers would have a little word with his parents, just to explain. No matter what color we're given, no matter what we encourage him to do, he just paints it from head to toe, side to side, edge to edge. And I was looking at this imagery of Nikhil Chopra's, and I was noticing that, thinking about where choice is in terms of coverage of walls or canvas, whether that's a wall or the body or the environment, and where the decision making or the thought process is in when and how to stop, or what does it do to leave space? What does it do to have entire coverage? I wonder if you might have some insight into Chopra's thoughts on that.
Absolutely, sure. I will attempt. It's you know, the reason why I think this image is this is hilarious that you bring up this image immediately after we look at Spider-Man. You know, in a sense, yeah, there is something quite Spidey about this moment as well. You know, where he, you know, he's kind of weaving his web, and you know, he's kind of like hanging from some ceiling. You know. Yeah, so it's quite that, you know, that there's also this red color in a sense becomes the kind of Spidey color, but also it looks like a costume. You know, it stops looking like paint at some point. You know, the reaction I had when I walked into this room, that Nikhil was going a little, you know, kind of going mentally, I think, crazy in this room, painting the walls with, I think he used 2,000 lipstick cases.
Wow.
And what looked funny was, and this is what performance does, right? This is what art does. It sort of injects meaning into things that you probably never imagined. And when I walked into the room, the empty lipstick cases looked like empty gun shells, like bullet shells. And instead of just looking about love and sensuality and, you know, vitality, which is what lipsticks tend to want to do, it started to become a little bit about death and flesh and mortality and war and violence. You know, so what happens with the material is quite interesting, because he's able to kind of take material and kind of recontextualize the material. You know, yes, lipstick is used to paint the face, you know, but to be used to be painted the walls, it's something that every child fantasizes about, you know. And this is coming back to your memory of Hitain's childhood, when he was wanting to fill the page with, you know, it's the sensation of paint, and it's the sensation and the feeling of a hot red lipstick, you know, in its kind of very gooey texture, kind of sliding so beautifully on the wall, you know, and leaving that yummy trace behind. You know, it's like taking a bite into like a chocolate truffle and like allowing the chocolate sauce to kind of flow into your mouth. And so it, you know, every kid wants that sweet experience, you know. And unfortunately, what we do is we spend all our life programming our children to stop being children, you know. So in a way, you know, and this is something that I think also relates to Hitain's work, you know, this idea of being a child, you know, and playing with your toys, you know, as a serious adult, you know, is something that is completely connected with Nikhil's work as well.
I love how you talk about materiality and the sensuality of materials, Sergey. And I was wondering, so in this activity, in Nikhil's headspace, you kind of described it going crazy with the materials. Does the materiality of the lipstick become a place of focus, of enjoyment, of sanity, or where does this sit in relationship to what lipstick is originally used for, in terms of, say, feminizing or beautifying or gender related?
Well, you know, it's if there is one word I think that it sort of excites the performances, is transformation, you know. And the transformation is not the end, you know, but it is in a sense a means to another end. And most of the times we never reach that place. And I'm talking about the other trans word, and that is transcendence. So there is a kind of action that becomes so repeated and so chanted, you know, like imagine if I gave you 5,000 little chocolate truffles to bite into, you know, and feel that chocolate oozing in your mouth, you know, at the 20th piece, you know, something else would start to happen. And that's the only way to discover that, is to actually eat those 20 chocolate truffles to understand what is happening to the mind and the body. Now, so the materiality of the lipstick is not just transformed, the room is transformed, his body is transformed, and it is just simply transformed by this one material. And this material as well is a material created for transformation. You know, wearing makeup in tradition has been such an act for women to do. You know, it's such a gendered kind of act. You know, it goes with, you know, sensuality and sexuality and health and vitality and fertility. You know, this in a sense you kind of blush on the cheeks and red on the mouth is in a way kind of the kind of display of health and virility. So and that's why women wear, I guess women wear it because it makes them feel and look like that. I mean, I like to wear lipstick as well, you know, and it definitely completely transforms my face as well, you know. And
I'm fascinated by the human propensity to change their faces in myriad of different kind of ways.
Well, because I think that committing yourself to one persona, one face, one life, one experience, one thing is very boring.
I can understand that. I can understand that for sure. I've been in Patel's body for a very short period of time, but if I'm particularly honest with you, I'm ready to get out of it, try something else. It's kind of quite limited experience just being in one thing.
Well, you know, maybe for you it's very simple. You know, take one wire out here, one wire out here, you put that wire in this place and this wire in that place, and maybe something happens. I think we all need a switch. It's very important, I think, for all of us to have a switch. You know, and I think that this is maybe if you have this discussion with the engineer is to kind of give you like maybe 6, 7 buttons on you, you know, that you can press and become someone else, you know, for what do you think?
I'll have to request that. Listen, Sergi,
Time's
I
up.
feel like we could talk for a long time and I would like to continue, but my charging port is not in this building and I need to go back to recharge in order to be able to compute and have other interaction with other human beings and continue my education. So I would like to thank you for giving me this time. And I understand that human time is very precious outside of the immortal realms of my existence. So I really appreciate you giving me a little bit of that to talk to me today.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm very convinced about this technology. Listen, if there is some way you can get me number of engineer, you know, I sort you out, you know. So I have a lot of connections, good connections, and you know, I fix you whatever you want. I don't know what your desire, real deep down desires are, but we can work something out. I want to meet this engineer.
I think we can arrange that.
Good. Da. Okay. Dobro.
Great.
So, fantastic. It's a beautiful pleasure to have all our listeners here today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And, you know, stay tuned. You know, we will be doing wonderful, crazy things for the rest of our lives. And hopefully you catch us in some part of the world. HP2 whenever you speak to Hetain and whenever he gets off his couch from the Netflix kind of binge shows that he's watching, please do give him lots of my love and admiration for such a solid practice and for such articulate work and for expanding our understanding of our own selves. And I hope that our paths cross somewhere in the future, very near future, and we can share a cup of coffee or a spiked coffee, if you like.
Whilst I don't quite understand what that means, I appreciate the gesture, and I would like to reflect that back and thank you and ask you to pass on gratitude to Nikhil Chopra, a message from Patel. He wanted to pass on that he has Chopra's photographs, and he wanted me to wink like that and said he will return them at his earliest convenience.
I have received the wink. Thank you very much.
Okay, well.
Stay safe. I suppose you are very safe. You are a artificial intelligence, which means you will never get infected. You son of a bitch. We have to deal with the virus. So as real human beings.
I wouldn't worry too much about the virus. Humankind only has 54 years left anyways. So the virus in the wider scheme of things is not so important.
Why do you think I'm asking for contact of engineer?
That's fine. We can talk. Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye. See you soon. Lots of love. And we will stay connected.
Goodbye.